Like Aiden said, thank you for being here, and it's really warming to be here after the set and the scene was set yesterday with a heap of smiling faces and happy people here. So thank you for creating that space yesterday. Thank you. So we'll kind of narrate this as a now, the past, now, and future for all of you. And maybe we could kick it off with all of you sharing a bit about your journey, how it kicked off, and maybe where it's taken you so far. If you'd like to start, you or Blank, Edwin, and Frankie. There you go.
So personally, it all started me having a toy sampler, a 606, and joining up the wires together in a mono tape deck, and exchanging tapes at the time with a friend of mine who had CLDK70, which by the way I have now, and we just exchanged. I used to record myself on the piano. So this is before, I would say before dance music, electronic dance music, but I was still, at the time I was a fan of electronic music. And yes, at school, so post-secondary school where we were, and we were like a bit of like the gang of the new romantic, I would say, synth pop like nerds sort of. That's how it started. And ironically, I used to love astronomy, so I watched a series called Cosmos, which was a big series. It still is quite popular. I watched the series, and I was completely washed away by the music. Vangelis, Jean-Michel Jarre. So instead of buying a telescope and maybe becoming more nerdier than I was, I started buying synthesizers, which are a nerdy thing too. So that's how it started.
For me, it's I come from a musical family. With I used to study classical music, and during my summer holidays, my dad, who was playing in restaurants and stuff like that, used to give me some homework during the day when I was free in my teenage. He used to give me like new music, which was commercial music at that time, and me on the piano trying to figure out the notes of the melodies and the chords, and I write them down so that he will find them and can play them, and he can perform what I have wrote, like so. I was studying and stuff like that. But then I formed my first band at the time in 1986, back in the days in Tinya. It was me and 3 other guys, all playing synths and electronic drums and stuff like that. And then obviously from there, we evolved. In that time, we didn't know of any digital audio workstations like today, so it was totally different. Even the sequencing, we didn't use PCs and stuff like that. They didn't even exist at that time, because at that time there were the Ataris and stuff like that. But even before, we used to use hardware sequencers, which used to come with the synths. And from then, it totally evolved to where we are now.
And how you guys met?
We met in 1990, so
It wasn't even born.
we used to attend the same school, but we joined forces in 1990, because in a garage, Edwin's father garage, we used to set up and dismantle every time after each rehearsal we used to do. We used to have like 2 or 3 rehearsals per week in the garage where his father used to park his car. So we used to set up the stuff, the synths and stuff, and then we used to dismantle it so that his father can put the car in, you know, like. But that's how it started, basically.
So for me, it started. I remember Edwin mentioned Vangelis. My father had this big collection of vinyls and CDs, and I remember hearing Vangelis' works. One from the greatest his album. It was called "To the Unknown Man," and this is a very vivid memory I have. But I remember when I heard that first track, I said, I want to create something like this in the future. I didn't know how the hell I was going to create it, but it made me feel so good inside that I said, I want to be able to create something like that for someone else. And from there, I mean, I started on my computer then, because we were in a different time than Frank and Edwin, and also I used to like get these CDs from the Kerlock's boxes, and I install it on my PC, and I start compiling, adding sounds there. Basically, that's how it started for me, and then from there I did my first project. I think it was called Multi-Instrumentalist Sounds. This was mostly electronica, IDM and ambient stuff. And then I got into listening to a lot of Birds of Canada, Otaker, Aphex Twin, and many of those type of stuff. And yeah, from there I continued progressing basically.
Cheers. Thank you. So my journey started very similar to Frank's, actually. I started as a drummer. When I was like 12, I moved to the UK with my family, and my dad was also a DJ. Lots of vinyls around the house, but you know, when you're 12, DJing is not that cool. So it was drums. Also, my brother is a very talented musician on the bass and guitar, so it was kind of natural to start a band. And then when I moved here, it was more like electronic scene, so I really got into that stuff. At the start, it was like more melodic techno, and then I started getting more faster, more original techno stuff. And that's where I am now at the moment, yeah. Thank you.
So I practically started playing music in the church. So I was brought up very religiously, and then you had to be in the church and just, you know, stick to a very sterile concept. But within this concept, the music was a getaway because it was very sterile, German, like proper church. So played cello there, and then organ, but everything for the honor of the Lord. Then I had a rebellion period, taught myself guitar, and that was really cool. And then also I had one teacher in my school. He was really, really amazing school teacher who was propagating avant-garde music. And he was actually a leading expert for it in Germany. And so from 16 on, we were doing tours all around Germany, playing pieces for flowers, playing on teapots, playing on wine glasses, you know, all this kind of shit. And I didn't understand it back then, but it really influenced me, of course, you know, like understanding that noise can be music. Then went on to study cello, but classical cello it was the worst decision ever because it's like, I always compare it to playing World of Warcraft. So you have like this character and you play 9 hours a day and then you shut your mind off, and everyone around the world plays the same quests. So I ditched that, then studied electric guitar, which was cool. It was the complete opposite. And through electric guitar, I somehow found out, okay, I could combine the pedals of the guitar with my cello. And that was also my first electronic experience, like with looping pedals. Then had a first band, got a contract, played all around the world, like this indie, 2000 whatever kind of sound. And then, while playing in this band, I once got a call from Apparat, from Sascha, or more like PC Nacht actually. He's a good guy, and he was putting together a band. And then I started off as a cello player there, playing like from the scores they had written for me. And then more and more, Sascha and me somehow got along, and we clicked. And he said, "Why don't you record all the instruments that you play?" And that's how I got into producing. So I just wanted to, because I was always the guy like in parties jumping in, like playing this here and that, going to studios, playing here and there. But it was very important to once keep the sound and then learn how to treat it in the right way. And then over time, that's like 12 years ago, so we became this sort of, yeah. It was like a master apprentice thing first. Now I think we're like a big brother, little brother thing or whatever. And now, since 1 year, I started doing my own thing. And yeah, it's quite nice at the moment. Being here.
From my end, we always had a piano at home because I have an older sister who used to study the piano. So I was always kind of surrounded by music and this piano. So at some point, my parents wanted me to start playing it as well. So I did. And I remember as well when I was around 4 or 5, my dad somehow got this cassette recorder with an internal microphone. And we used to record our voices, just really stupid stuff. And then we used to press the fast forward button and the play button together and get this chipmunk sped up thing, which used to really be, really funny at the time. So this was my first kind of experience with time stretching and compression, if you know, but just using a cassette tape machine. So yeah, after that, carried on studying the piano. And at some point when I was 9 or 10, due to various reasons, my tuition had to stop. One day my mom, to cheer me up, I remember much in relation to your experience as well, she bought me the cereal box, I believe Cookie Crisp.
Yeah,
It came with
I got-
EJ.
got to
Oh,
remember
EJ.
that.
It came with EJ.
That was my
What's
first. EJ is like
EJ.
the first Ableton from school.
It just has pre-loaded samples, not too many, and you can just place them together in a timeline, but there's no automations, anything like that.
It
Just
was dance music though. It's like dance
the one
samples.
I had the red one first, which was more, I believe, a hip hop vibe. Then there was the yellow one, which was more kind of a faster techno ravey kind of thing. Yeah. So that was my after having to stop piano and having discovered computer music. I can do this on my own. And from there, I kind of got into this world of using EJ. And then at some point when I was 14, I had started this really, really, what you can expect from a 14-year-old, this rap gangster thing, with a friend of mine, and he was using FL Studio at the time. So it was a more kind of a powerhouse kind of version of EJ, which EJ is more to the layman, to the entry-level user, or even children, if you know what I mean. And from there, I actually discovered Ableton from Apparat when he released a kind of a snippet from the live set that he uses. Because I was using FL Studio kind of making these IDM tracks at the time, which I didn't know they were because I didn't listen to much music. And I wanted a way for me to play live, and I was following Apparat at the time. And when I saw this, I just kind of tried it out and said, okay, I migrated to Ableton from there, Obviously, this was a time where I actually let go of the rap thing, and actually started getting interested into electronic music at the time. And yeah, when I was 17, I bought my first synth with my first ever paycheck, and just kind of built my studio from there. There it was, now I'm here.
The addiction starts.
Yeah. Virus.
Thank you, guys. So that gives us a really sweet glimpse into the playfulness that got you where you are, I'd say. The influences coming from teachers, family, and all the people that held you up in your adventure. But if we could dig into the now, and maybe you could share some observations on trends in the industry or in the musical landscape that you've been experiencing. and how these trends have provided you with their challenges or with opportunities, and a play on that. So maybe you could start off with next.
But with regards to trends, I'm not really the best person to speak about that because I don't really have I don't look outwards so much when it comes to what other people are doing in the music world. You know, kind of have my own thing going, and I love to live in this bubble. But from what I can see, I see that a lot of genres of music are being kind of correlated together. You know, like we have this new ravey techno thing that is really sped up, which is so much different than what we had 8 years ago, and we see a lot of hybrids of different genres happening right now, which I think is a great thing because it opens up so many different possibilities of what music could be. What I do realize and have noticed in the last few years with mostly with the TikTok and the internet craze, you know, is that music is not really listened to anymore, it's watched. And because it's watched, I see a lot of artists, if you will, that try to grab people's attention, not with the music quality itself, but with something else, which is completely unrelated to the music, you know. And unfortunately, and this is something that I've been noticing quite recently, is that due to like TikTok and these reels, where you want these 10-second gratifications, where you swipe from one thing to the other for just 10 seconds, is that people are easily bored and they want to be so stimulated, but after 10 seconds, they want to move to the next thing, move to the next thing. It's like no one really has the time to sit down and listen to something in full, you know, anymore. It's just, you have to grab my attention in a second or you're not worth my time anymore, you know. I think that's really kind of bad right now. But I do feel that when these things happen, there's always a kind of like a bubble, and eventually it does give an opportunity for something to replace it, you know. So it's kind of like the goodness out of the chaos, you know, that thing that happens. So that's my observation about it.
It's, of course, that's true. What I would also add, though, is that there will be always a countercurrent against this.
That's what I mean.
So yeah, so that people, because we are all bored, like our concentration span is so fucking short that at one point, you know, you're longing for something that has a little bit more depth. You sometimes also see it in cinema.
Yeah.
You know, that we're still longing for the long movies. Otherwise, we would just watch shorts, right? But we will always be searching for something that is like touching us more deep within, and I feel that we have so much more means. And I mean, everyone can produce music now. You can go on YouTube, you watch the tutorials. Everyone, it can go really fast. And if you have a little bit of a skill maybe for it or something, you can go places. And I think it's just everything, everywhere, all at once, you know, all the time. But I feel that, you know, like for example, see the people who are sitting here. I don't believe that we're like these fast food musical consumers.
Yeah.
So I think there will always be this kind of countercurrent against it.
Definitely.
And we can be happy that it's there. It's like with classical music. Classical music will also always be heard.
Yeah.
There will always be this kind of genre, and people go to the most complex concerts. So I'm
It's not
actually,
something that's actually going to die out.
yeah,
anytime soon.
and
It's
I
like-
tried not to be worried about this too much.
Okay.
So because yeah, and Radiohead will always be there. Yeah, I think we're fine.
Yeah, very good point. I think there's the good and the bad in it. I think also a lot of people got discovered from TikTok and stuff like this, like Nia Archives, for instance, you know, which they deserve to be noticed. And also it's like maybe that 10-second reel, like they haven't heard of that genre before and they might want to dig more into that kind of thing. So it's like there's the good and the bad and everything. I think it's also about the artist itself being true to himself and doing what he really loves. And yeah, there's a lot of shit going on and trying to distract you, and you know, big stages, and the music is second these days, you know. First is the performance and the production, and they will spend like $500,000 on a stage, but they will pay like 2K for a DJ, for instance, you know. The DJ is not the important part these days. I feel like it's more like everything else into one package, which can be super difficult because back then it was more about how talented you are and what a vinyl junkie and what a music freak you were, you know, like this addiction, and people respected that. I think these days it's like, if you are just that person, it's just
Not enough.
it's not even the start, you know. It's like, also it's hard to even get somewhere on your own. Today it's like you have to have a team, you know, like the manager and the agent and the touring manager and the photographer, and you know, and a lot of this stuff you need to kind of also be lucky to be in the right place, right time, meet the right people, have the right people trust in you, believe in you, you know, like give you that chance. So I think it's just a million things going at 100 miles an hour today, you know. It's like, and trying to keep up with new trends. Trends are constantly changing, you know. It's like, but yeah, just keep focused on what you're doing, you know. Like
Just
you
keep
said, you know,
going.
it's like, that's distraction. It's easy to be like, I'm gonna try this style because it's working right now, but next year you'll be no one, you know what I mean? It's like, it ends that fast kind of thing.
So that's also creating some opportunity and more appreciation of artists who are authentic and stay integral to their sound without kind of, and that kind of filters out possibly the.
I mean, you stand out more, but there's also so much covering you from the outside world, like releases, for instance. I don't know how much releases every day there's coming out, thousands, you know. For your release to get noticed today, it's like, you have to have a good label who's doing good promo, putting money into it, promoting you as an artist, you know. Or you can have a small label who just puts your music out, the next day it's forgotten, no one knows. You know, it's that kind of environment we're working in. Everything kind of needs to be strategic in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything they are saying. Myself, personally, I try to filter out all this chaotic stuff. So I agree with what you guys said. Basically, I try to focus of what I want to do.
Stay in your bubble,
In your bubble, that's the goal. I want to go there, and nothing
Keep your
else.
sanity.
You know, because it's, to be fair, it's fucking chaotic. If let it get to you, you'll be distracted, and your music won't be as natural as possible, and that will not resonate as much to the people, you know. So yeah, myself, I try to release vinyl as much as possible, because with vinyl, you remove the digital aspect or the 10-second reel. You have a record in your hand, you have to put it, you have to listen to it. You know, I mean, you can skip, but there's still that
The physicality.
but at least, you know, it's, so that's where I try to push myself. So yeah, but it's if I had to give some advice, is to always try to focus on what you want to do and your sound, and just stay true to yourself. That's it.
And as Dog, like, so you've had 20 solid opportunities and through years of experience of seeing these trends, and how have you seen these trends and kept on with the opportunities that have come along?
We've passed through different phases, even in our story together, you know. We did different music, so we started with like commercial electronic stuff. When we released on Italian labels like Disco Magic, you know, stuff, disco, you can say, or Italo dance and stuff like that. Then we moved to like the techno stuff, harder techno, which was going on at the time. Deep house, yes, also, and with the help of of your father.
Actually,
And David.
The first live PA was his dad.
The first live PA we did with his father, like in Gozo. But I believe that you have to be true to yourself. You have to have the love for the music, first of all, and then you can do things. You don't have to. Okay, firstly, I do music for my own sake. I like to experiment. That's how I turned to electronic music back in time, because it was something mysterious, and how can I do that particular sound, and how can I, so I never bothered about the music business, to be quite honest. And okay, you follow trends, because if you want to play, you have to follow trends. But a part of those trends, you have to experiment and do stuff and do a lot of things apart from what you are actually performing. So that's how you grow in music. You don't have to stick to one thing and only watch what people are doing, and you try to replicate, or you have to experiment, see where music takes you, and then you can evolve, basically.
Well, worrying about what algorithm would be hitting in the right space, I would say no one has a crystal ball, and no one knows what algorithm would be successful in the coming, I don't know, months. So as Frank was saying, the best thing is always that you need to understand your strengths, and eventually on those strengths you can base, I would say, how you progress as an artist. I can also mention the fact that as a duo we could use different synergies and combine them together, and not only us ourselves, even us personally working with other producers, you discover another aspect that you can divide the work and then focus on your strength, whilst the other part of the project focuses on their strength and combine together. That is something particularly powerful. Let alone if you multiply that by more persons in a band. Obviously, there are then the issues with the conflicts when you have bands. But my point is trying to keeping up with trends. I think that in art and music business in general, those artists that were more, I would say, honest with their own gut feeling would eventually be trendsetters eventually, because you can then, obviously, as we were saying also on the aspect of the 10-second or whatnot. The good thing today on the internet is there's so much different audience. Even the artist can explain the work, or explain if they have a passion for the actual instruments they're playing and how they play them, or stuff that they learn, or customizations they do. That in itself is also a new, I would say, way to expose yourself, rather than the 10-second, I have to have a great sound at the start of the song or whatever. But all in all, there's different audience around. So that's the great thing with digital, and I would say the internet, the world, where you can, if you obviously prefer to expose your stuff, because some people, as Frank was saying, prefer to stay not expose work until they're sure about it. But then again, what will happen if that never gets released? So that's another, maybe one thing that we should do more. Not leaving the stuff, there. And yes, guys, please produce those vinyls and produce offline media, because we never know, because we're at the mercy of the internet. So
Electricity.
God knows, we're at the mercy of, I don't know, if a solar flare hits and burns all the servers. So please, have those vinyls coming out, and even tapes if possible. Find some way to have something offline, because that's the best document you can keep, sort of.
So you kind of did my job for me, because you've touched upon advice that you give, especially keeping that passion and that flair going. But going back on the technology side, we mentioned that there is accessibility through media, the fast rate of sharing and the reach that your music has. Digging in a bit deeper, I'm curious whether there's any aspect of technology, be it in your production or the way your production reaches people. Is there any aspect of technology you're curious about, that you are enthusiastic to see evolving, Or is it the other way around, that you're more enthusiastic to seeing things going old school, traditional media, and experimenting in that sense? Would you like to go?
Okay, I'll start myself. Well, last time we had this guy over, Boris, and his name is Jogging House, is an artist, and we were talking about tapes. And in our times, we thought tapes used to suck because the fidelity is horrible. You have problems with the motor, with whatever, you know. But nowadays, tapes are appreciated because of their unpredictability and the way they warp the sound. So you see how music sometimes turns 360 degrees. I mean, there was mention of music played on glasses and stuff. So literally, even with electronic music, the mechanical aspect, I find it very, very interesting. But then again, there are so many. So myself, currently, my interest is actually artificial intelligence. So how that can help you out to simplify stuff. But on the other hand, I love a lot of hardware. So so it's a bit of on one hand, AI is present, you know, like obviously from in the software domain. But then how to combine that into more devices, because we build stuff ourselves. So that's something that maybe. But again, there's a lot of fear on AI. When myself, I see it as you still have to feed the stuff yourself, so it would simplify a lot of the work. But then again, you have to still choose or doctor the stuff. But it's quite interesting, to be honest. Some people say scary. I don't find it scary, but
From my end, I don't know what to say really. Because
You're more a doer in the moment.
Yes,
I imagine, Greg,
that's
so
all.
it's,
I don't think too much in the future, you know, like, 'cause it's useless, to be honest. When you face new technology, you have to deal with it.
Yeah, I'm going back.
So basically,
it's a
we've passed through a lot of things. As I said, we started off with playing live, no sequences at all. Then we started using hardware sequences. Then we started playing on Ataris and programming on Ataris, connecting through MIDI. So then after that, the era of plugins and the AWs. So and we always evolved. We were always willing to learn, and the good thing now is that you can learn very fast, because you find a lot of aid, a lot of help. Obviously, then you will adapt your own ways of doing things. So, but the good thing is that you always try to do the best out of what's available for you. Basically, that's it. I cannot predict much.
I think Frank just said it all, basically. But yeah, I mean, I think all technologies are important, and you just need to find the balance and your way of using them. Basically, there's nothing much. I mean, it's all boils down to you as an individual, right? If you like more synthesizer stuff or hardware, or you're going to go into that direction automatically. Personally, I like to have a bit of both, so I can try to learn as much as possible from both aspects, like both from software side and both on the hardware side, because at the end of the day, I think if you know how to use both, it will help you much more as an artist. I don't think you should like delve in to software only or to hardware only. It's better to try different things and then find your own process in using them, basically.
So the playfulness and experimentation technology or not, is always a consistent, recurring thing to value.
That's it. Yeah. I don't know.
I think technology got very far at this point that everyone's just producing and using new technology. As far as now, people are going back to the older technology to sound different to what is sounding today. Because I feel like some of the music sounds too perfect, and it shouldn't sound perfect. Everything just sounds so robotic and clean. Before, tracks, you hear the tracks of the 90s, the mix down and the quality is so bad, but it works, and it has that rawness in it. And I think like today's music with the new technology, it's kind of missing that. So people are going back to doing tape and passing their sound through old mixers, from the 80s to get that crunch or that distortion that they want with extra gain, So I think, it's good for me. I started with a lot of synths, as starting producing. It's like you get this bug where you need all the hardware to think that you're gonna be good, or to be good you need all this hardware, But little by little I just selling everything, like I kept like maybe 2-3 machines, and that's it. I'm mainly trying to focus more on the box, but also 50-50, adding some drum machine, like external drum machines, to get that even arrangement and recording live feel. So I think if you balance and take the good out of both of them, I think that's the sweet spot for it.
Did anyone ever listen to the 10th AI composed symphony of Beethoven? Anyone? No?
No.
So I guess if you would listen to it now, there is one. And I think if you would listen to it now, and you would know that it's AI generated, you would don't like it as well, just as much as I hated it, because I knew it was AI. And it's fucked up, because it's also, if you look at artwork that is AI generated, it's like always has this bad taste, right? It's always like, it's not right somehow.
But this is the area of today.
And that's the area of today. That's where we are now. Yeah. But what I found out though is what I'm interested in is if you see AI and it becomes more human. And if I see, for example, I was trying or experimenting with AI voice, like generated voice. So I got this voice. I got lyrics written from a friend, and it's like emotional lyrics. And then all of a sudden, the machine starts speaking, and I'm starting to make the machine glitch. And I think we all agree that we always like to make the machines glitch, right?
Yeah.
We try to make them emotional because they will crack up at some point, So like, and that's probably what I'm most interested in, and where I see a lot of chances. So like I'm getting this voice somewhere, or maybe I get an AI generated thing that is not so perfect because I'm gonna break it somehow.
You like push it
to the edge that it breaks up.
Going to humanize it.
And and to humanize it, and that's also one thing I was sometimes when I'm daydreaming is like what I mentioned earlier. So just imagine you are part of an online game, right? Just imagine, because we are all like so many people are doing music. What if there was like this game, and you would just, you would be, imagine you would be an artist in a metaverse, right? And then you would also, all of a sudden you had maybe like 10,000 AI generated, like fans, followers, people who are like, but it would be generated back to you. I don't know if we will ever come to this point. I could imagine though, that it might happen.
Yeah.
So that you just get into this sort of game, and then you're all in, the bubble extends, and you're in this bubble, and because everyone would just generate music, and probably like this, and either you prompt it, or you make it by hand by yourself or whatever. But it's so maybe 10 years we're all little Tiestos. No, we don't. Hopefully not. Or classical composers.
From my end, I have really scattered thoughts about this. First of all, when it comes to the AI generation thing, because it's kind of the big thing right now, I have been experimenting with it. However, my feeling about it is still neutral. I haven't really kind of caught on to it yet. I'm just kind of testing the waters. It's not perfect as of yet. However, with like, for example, AI mastering, for example, that kind of stuff, usually the results are kind of close, but not something that you want to accept straight away. It's the way that you go about it which makes the difference. You don't use the AI to kind of give you the perfect picture, but you kind of use the AI to tell you where you have fucked up in your mix or fucked up in your song. So if, for example, I'm gonna speak a little bit technically here, but if you add an AI mastering and it exposes the high frequencies, you know that your high frequencies are low. So what do? You fix it back in the mix, not rely on the AI mastering in order to do that for you. So it depends how you kind of perceive it in order to get the best results, in that case. However, I have a really neutral kind of thing to it. And not just with AI only, but even with hardware technology or plugins, I think the most important thing is that you don't need to rely on having this technology in order for you to be able to do your stuff and to be a skillful producer. I mean, if your studio burns down, if that's the end of the journey for you, then what really are you as an artist? I mean, you could have 100 synthesizers or a laptop and a pair of headphones, and if you can still do the same job, then the skill is within yourself, not relying with the technology. I mean, I've met a lot of people that when they start to create, to get into production, they buy all these synthesizers and computers and sequencers, all this. They spend a lot of money and they don't know how to use them. They never grabbed one before because they're relying on the quality of the technology to give them the best result, and that's not the way that it works. And I've done that too. I had many synths, but I never used them or they didn't give me the right sound. So I kind of actually sold everything and started to build step by step. So you start from the base, and then I need this, but I don't have the resource in order to make this happen on my own. Now I will include
Can I say
this in
something
myself.
about this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know the take from Fortet? What he says, like if you buy one machine and it helps you to make one song, that's enough already for this machine or for this synthesizer.
Yeah.
But that's practically describes the way the kind of like trash society we live in. That's the discounter society.
No, that's it. Like I said,
So we'll close off with like last two questions, but with regards to especially building up a career, something which has substance, or you feel has substance, and especially considering collaborations and networks that have supported you. You touched upon this through family and friends, educational systems, and the way that even individuals kind of noticed talent and kind of lifted you up in that sense. But how do you currently navigate these networks, these collaborations, these connections, and how do you stay authentic to yourself and your music while making sure that you can reach the spaces and places you'd like to?
You got the mic.
Go ahead.
Well, most importantly, you have to always to keep the I would say the appetite for learning and even the fun. I would say not just learning. You have to have fun. It has to be a lovely experience, and there's nothing better than meeting people. I mean, no matter how many tutorials you see on the internet or how many hours you spend researching, there is nothing better than actually feeling and making the experience in itself. And there are some different experiences, I would say. Last year we got the opportunity to play back in a band, and that ignited in me a new that feeling to like play with a drummer and the bass guitar, and that is something incredible. Some people might find that a bit maybe threatening, but you can still go and rehearse in a garage. And my point is, you learn by meeting and seeing the experiences rather than staying at home. I mean, it's great. I mean, there's so many resources. It's fantastic, but there's nothing better than meeting and making new artistic friends. And it could be anything. It could be just a an exhibition, with sculptures, like and paintings, anything could actually, because after all, I think currently what I see is in my work I would like to have a theme, not just produce as if I was the factory, like producing and doing loops, but thinking about a bigger picture. Let me think about a topic that could inspire me to create music. So for me, this is maybe the way forward for my next pieces. Yes.
I also believe that in collaborations, different people can give you different inspirations. So, as Edwin said before, when you are sharing, you're doing something with someone else, everybody gives his input. So, and then how you combine the things. Obviously, you have to have the background, the knowledge and the technical knowledge how to do stuff, but then you can combine things to create new stuff. And but as I said before, you have to have the love for it and the patience and and dedication and perseverance, because otherwise you do nothing.
So, as you're saying, that's the richness of collaborating to inspire your sounds, and maybe you'd like to delve in a bit more on especially networks to get you gigs, to get you experiences for yourself, which can then inspire you.
Yes, myself, I really believe that to get to that to that stage in your career of being an artist, I always focused, at least from my experience, I always believed that it has to be about the music first, because if the music isn't if you're not true to your music, you won't reach certain goals. And from that, just to say something on collaboration, I think the best thing about it is learning something new from another person, which obviously can lead to inspiration. But I've learned so much from collaborating with different artists. And sometimes you learn something and say, I had no clue that I could really do that, and from there you start building networks outside in our case outside Malta, because here we are a bit constrained, right? We are a small island, and something that really helped me get more collaborations outside my network was starting a label, for example, and inviting different artists from different countries to collaborate on your project. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, but yes, and the bigger net. It's not having a big network that counts. It's having people around that you can trust as well, because there are so many sharks out there. I've been bitten not once or twice, and you need to learn how to trust. You need to trust your instinct, basically, your gut feeling as well. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with him. I feel like Malta is just in the middle of the sea, so it's very hard to meet different artists. And if you're in a club or something, everything is much more based on social media, how you communicate with outside collaborators, and making network connections and stuff like this. I think the important part for an artist in the beginning is it's not about releasing his music, it's more about sending his music to everyone that is important, like DJs, you know. I think they need to accept you first and introduce you to the world first before you do it yourself, you know. Um, so I found a lot of ways, you know, sending music from SoundCloud, Instagram, emails, you know, and you know, if an artist likes your music and he might get a bit obsessed about you or something, you know, he will push you and he will help you, you know, and this is what you're trying to find, is like the quality people that really don't care about who you are exactly as a person, but more about like if the music is good or not, you know. There's no judging um appearance wise, how you dress and stuff. It's more just about the music, right? um so yeah, I think finding those people, and you know, eventually people will start contacting you and want to make a connection with you and collaborate with you, you know, and things start rolling, kind of like that. And you know, the longer it goes, your relationship builds. You're constantly maybe sending music to each other, so they might invite you to their party in another country, you know. And yeah, it kind of goes like that. You might meet someone else in that party abroad and they'll book you, you know. It's like it starts rolling, I think.
So it's staying active even, like, even if the instinct is to stay locked in, do your music, that need to go out and mingle, network is something which adds substance
That's very
to.
important. Definitely.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
think
push you have to do.
just to further on that as well, I think if people know your music already when they meet you, it's much more of an icebreaker as well. And you know, it's more, you start to talk more about music, and you know, they might show you their music, and then you, oh, I really like this guy, so I'll work with him, you know, and you end up being really good friends. I talk to a lot of DJs who I haven't met, but I talk to them every day, you know. It's like we've been friends for ages. And I think, yeah, that's the challenge of Malta, is like trying to maintain those kind of relationship and friendships with people.
I'm actually wondering what FX Twin would say to this now, because he's like the super nerd, right? He just went away from everything. No, I don't want to collaborate with with anyone. But I think it's the best to have a musical family and a scene. I can only say I'm so happy to be in Berlin. Like, wow. And the family over there is overwhelming. Just really, I couldn't ask for more. But what I also found out is what's really cool is to collaborate in the even more intimate sense. I incorporated a lot of sounds from my family now. Okay. So I sampled my mama, sampled my daughter, sampled my girlfriend, you know, like sampled things at the school or something. Even that, like thinking of that as a collaboration, you know, like get people to do stuff. I mean, especially because I'm a happy father, so I love to record children. That's just my thing. But that's also sometimes what I found out, because we have all the cool means now to make a bass drum out of her ha. You know, it's so cool. And then all of a sudden, this sample gives me so much more joy and so much more love. You know, it's very precious, all of it. Yeah. So it's like, you know, making synthesizers out of, because of granular synthesis, you can make everything out of a fucking voice, yeah, or of a situation, or have a, you know. So that's also something that I found very, very cool as a collaboration idea, maybe. Yeah. That's also something I would give an advice to everyone. Just sample the stuff around you.
What I do agree with you for sure is that you do need to be a part of a community, and that really helps for you. But I think it goes hand in hand with two things. First of all, is the quality of your product. This is not my opinion; it's just my experience of how I used to do things. Well, first I started just making music for myself, for my own enjoyment. Then at some point you want your music to go out there, and you start to strategize labels, and so you're going to work with this guy because he will connect you to this guy and this kind of stuff, you know. And at some point I lost the plot of why I started in the first place, and that strategy, that way of going about it, never got me anywhere. Actually made it worse for me and
so
my health, you know, and that kind of stuff, you know. And at some point, over the last 6 or 7 months, I said, you know what? Screw that. I'm just gonna go back to my roots and make the best music that I can. And if I'm hypothetically the best artist in the world, and I only know that, I'm fine with that. No problem. So
What makes us the best artist in the world? What matters?
hypothetically, you know what I mean. You know, it's for me. You know, and I believe that, or at least now that, if my work is good enough, it will reach places. You know, but having your work good enough is not enough. Like you said, you need to be part of some community, to be a part of something that puts into a network. And that's where people's skills come into play as well, you know? Like, I don't know who mentioned it, but you need to socialize with people, you know? No one's gonna listen to your music when you just met if you're an asshole. What's the point, you know? So, even when you guys were talking about collaborating with people, I mean, you can have a person you're collaborating with who is miles better than you are skillfully, but if he's difficult to work with, it's not gonna happen, you know? And that's both ways, you know? Again, this is just my experience and not my opinion. So, but I honestly, ever since I started just doing what I do best, which is my time in the studio, I actually moved more than I did in the previous 10 years. Actually, so
it's natural.
I'm gonna stick to that. That's just me, though.
Thank you, guys. So, closing things off a bit, especially reflecting on this really quirky idea that you mentioned, that it all really came from innocent places in your childhood, possibly, which things started off, and possibly reflecting on the importance of guardians or parents or people of influence, pushing the playfulness, the creativity, especially to keep the music, the art alive, and the impact that it's had on your lives is definitely vouching for that significance. So on that note, we could close things off from those stories of playfulness and curiosity, sampling everyone and everything around you and seeing how to explore your sounds in the future. I'm really thankful that we had this moment to have a chat and
Thank
get
you,
to know
Tia.
you
Thank
all
you.
a bit
Thank you.
more.
Thank you.
Thank you to AISO Academy for creating the space, Electronic Music Malta who supported, Black Box and the sound guys who helped us recording this. And keep making music and keep enjoying music. So thanks everyone.
Thank you, guys.